Hello, my name is lielurr. Thank you so much for joining me again. If you're new to my channel, this is my art channel. I'm going to be doing videos involving art challenges, drawing traditionally, and then drawing digitally down the line. I'm still sort of tweaking it and sort of getting my bearings, so to speak, but this is, I think, maybe my fourth video going in. So yeah, I'm really excited to keep going and make more art and make more stuff and have you guys follow along. If you haven't watched them already, my last set of videos was going through my sketchbooks from as far back as I want to say early middle school up until college. About 16 years of progress between all of those sketchbooks combined. So it was a multi-part series. Please feel free to give it a watch. I'll put the link to the first video in the description below. In this video, I'm going to continue in sort of the same vein on a sort of nostalgic kick going through my art and finish up with my art that's all sort of all over the place in terms of just on loose pieces of paper, notebook paper, copy paper, that sort of thing. Nothing that's bound into a book, so to speak, but just sort of things I've saved over the years. So I used to save all of my art from when I was younger, but I have eventually handpicked through them so I don't have to carry around, 30 plus years of artwork with me from house to house and from move to move. So this here is going to be just a selection of some of my absolute favorites, and I think was sort of my best sort of idea of what my range was growing up. I was gonna organize the pieces, but I thought it'd be more fun to see them at random and get my genuine reactions that way. So these are all still collections from, I want to say, as early as early middle school up until I want to say high school, right before college. So it's a good amount of work in general, but it's all ranging in quality and style. So there will be a jump from quality now and then, probably even jarring from one piece to the next. So here we have a piece that I very much fondly remember. This was done in high school. I can't recall if it was like 9th, 10th grade, but it was pretty early on in my first sort of art classes. So the assignment, I don't remember what the name of the assignment was, but we were meant to draw using a grid, and then we're meant to add different textures and different just sort of elements in the picture in the background. So I tried my best to kind of keep everything as consistent as possible, or at least make everything be visually interesting without being too cluttered. It's meant to be a portrait of a woman in a sun hat on a sort of tropical island. You can see there's the sun, and we have some elements here of palm trees, and I think just a general sort of beachscape background, but the main focus is of course the figure in the front. I used a variety of techniques. I think I just used all the ones that I could think of and tried to sort of match everything together. So it's almost abstract. I guess it's pretty close to it. It's more abstract than realism for sure, but I really like that I was able to do this with just regular ballpoint pen. There is a slight difference in the quality of pen that I use. If you can notice that some of them are lighter than the others. Some are like a cool gray, while some are like a more rich, dark, almost sort of rich black color. But yeah, I just kind of had fun with this. Even some of it's fading on the edges here, but I can't tell. I think it says it's from 2009, if I'm correct. Moving right along, this is something that I guess would be qualified as mixed media. This is it looks like I was trying to make a wallet of some kind, or maybe like a prototype of something. I don't know how far I was planning to go with this. It's made from scrap cardboard, packing tape, and I drew on it with ballpoint pen. I think I may have sealed it. There's some smudging there. There's some sort of blotches that look like I may have tried to seal this with a sealer, but for the most part, yeah. Oh, and then the band, I think, is just a plastic cord that you use to make knots and like friendship bracelets and stuff like that. I used more of an abstract attempt at this too, so I just sort of drew things, and whatever fit, I just kind of drew around it and kept going and kept going. There was no real plan for this. There's no real, sketch or anything. I just kind of jumped right in. And it's mostly based around fruit, and if there's any vegetable, I think it's just fruit and just sort of random abstract shapes. Next up is another big one. This was something that I was very much, I guess, not famous for, but it was one of the pieces that was talked about the most in my sort of younger artistic learning career at school. There's a much better way to say that, I'm sure. But this was a piece that was inspired by MC Escher. I don't remember a lot of the assignments that we did in high school. I think a lot of them were mostly vague sort of suggestions, and then I kind of just took my own spin with it and just kind of went crazy with it. On the left-hand side, there are pieces that are inspired by MC Escher. These puzzle pieces are standard puzzle pieces on the bottom, and as they move forward and move higher up in the piece, they turn into fish. So there are some magical elements at play in this piece as well. It's a little hard to read looking back at it, but for the most part, it's supposed to be a mermaid. Her tail is in the very front on the right-hand side. I remember being particularly proud of the way that I got the shimmers and everything, the fins to work. I think that was like one of my, my proudest moments in terms of drawing things. And her hair is kind of secondary, which is funny because that's usually my top priority with these pieces, but I think I had a lot of fun drawing the tail and making it look realistic as possible. I really do love being able to add so many textures, and I think it works for the most part. This would have definitely benefited from actual sketching and planning out. I definitely drew the mermaid first and then worked around her. There's just a lot going on and it's a little difficult to read, but for the most part I think the important features stand out. Here we have a larger piece. This was definitely inspired by my budding interest in visual kei and J-rock and glam rock and Harajuku, all that fun stuff. That era of my, I guess, childhood, early teenagehood. So yeah, that was a big part of my inspiration for a while. There's a few pieces that are in here that will reflect that. It's funny how when you look back at your work, you can see that everything kind of has its own section. They have their own periods. You do have your own blue period, your own red period. You have your own sort of collections within your own work without realizing it. So these are just two characters. I don't know if they're twins, but they're probably siblings. I don't know. That's usually how I design characters. This is definitely not an assignment. I definitely just hit the ground running and just started drawing and drawing and drawing. I even decided to put a little cameo of myself on the bottom right here. Well, it's meant to be anyway. I feel like I took a break from designing stories and universes, I think, for a while, sort of catching up with schooling and whatever, but for the most part, these are just sort of random standalone characters. Okay, here's another big one. Not one of my most popular pieces, but this one is very significant to me. So this, like I've said before in previous videos, sometimes I will get ideas from dreams or just daydreaming, that sort of thing. I'll just go to bed and I'll just have a dream. I won't plan it or anything. It's just, it's just a whatever happens, whatever I fall asleep to. And then I'll wake up and I'll just have this dream that's very vivid and I'll remember it. And if I remember it clearly enough, I will draw it out or write it down or, get as much details as I can before I forget it. So I don't know how long the dream lasted exactly. I don't know if it was a couple hours or a couple minutes. What I do remember from the dream is that I was either standing before entering a church or a large sort of building, and it was overcast with snow. Just snow everywhere. There's just everything. Everything was pretty much white except for the building. And then there was a man on the snow who had just collapsed on the snow. So it was just very spindly and sickly looking, just on the snow. And I don't know if I went to go help him, but I remember distinctly that as I made my way up the steps, he sort of reached out to me and sort of tried to swipe at me, try to grab me or grab my attention or whatever he's trying to do. And I evaded him. And as I looked down on him, this is what I saw in my dream. I remember him having like this really specifically piercing red eye. And then I noticed the puddle of blood in the snow. So I don't know if he was dead or dying, or that was like his last, ounce of strength. Maybe he was reaching out to me, but I don't know. I don't remember his, aura in the dream. I don't know if he was evil or good or, in between. I don't know what it was going on, but I do remember his eye and just sort of glaring at me, or at least staring at me in that moment, and I couldn't take my eye away from him, and I think I just woke up after that, honestly. I don't remember pretty much anything else from that dream. This one, I could definitely see myself redoing. I just really like the composition. I like the sort of sudden area, like the bright sort of red, so that's like fresh blood, it looks like. So he either just coughed that up or he just collapsed or something. But I do like just the color. I like the watercolor scheme. This was done with those really crappy little Crayola watercolors that we had in our class, and we just kind of had them as school supplies, but I just kind of grabbed them and started using them. Again, not an assignment, but just something I decided to use. This was done in high school. I want to say maybe like 9th grade or 10th grade. This was one of my most sort of talked about pieces. I remember putting it in a couple art shows at school. I don't remember if I won, but I'm sure I did pretty well. Not bragging, just I don't recall them losing. I just don't remember if I placed like 1st, 2nd, or 3rd or whatever. But I think I was pretty high up there, maybe like the top 10s or something whenever I submitted these sort of pieces. So this was done in colored pencil, just regular traditional Crayola colored pencils. The background is sort of I think chalk pastel. I was getting into mixed media using chalk pastel. That was really fun for the very soft background. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think this was again another piece where I just started sketching one thing, and then I drew more and I drew more and I drew more. And I remember just really enjoying how it came out. And I distinctly remember this piece specifically, I had to not fight my school to get it back, but everyone really loved it, or at least my classroom really loved it. And then I think the principal, either principal or vice principal, somebody said that they wanted to put this piece on display at the school. So I was like, okay, cool, that's fine, whatever. And then I remember graduating, and they're like, I was like, can I get it back now? Because no one said anything. They just kind of kept it up there. So if I didn't ask for it, it would have still been hanging up at the school, which would have been nice, but you know, I kind of want it back. Okay, switching gears a little bit now. This is an older piece. You can see clearly from 2008. I don't remember when I started dating my work, but I didn't do it for a very long time. I just sort of assumed it was from this era of my life, but I started dating them, and even now I date them even more specifically to the day instead of just the year, because it just really helps looking back to know that, you know, around this time of the year I was doing a lot better, or it's a good way to see your progress and track your progress. So this piece was not drawn from memory. This was an image I found on Google, just a random Harajuku girl, you know, Lolita girl that I saw, and I just decided to test my rendering skills and drew her. I remember being particularly happy with how the bow came out. I think that's the best part easily. I really love how crisp the edges are, and I know it's a little beaten up from being so wrinkly and being so old. Here's something a little different. This was definitely an assignment. We had to draw popcorn. That was it. Like I said, I think we just had sort of vague instructions, draw a still life, including X item, and then after that I just took it in my own direction. I thought, you know, they look weird. I don't know if you ever looked at popcorn or looked at popcorn kernels up close or had to draw them for hours and hours. Maybe you start to go crazy. That's what I probably did. But popcorn kernels are very odd if you pay attention to them. There's a lot of little nooks and crannies and just weird surfaces and crevices all over them. And I thought they looked sort of alien. So there we go, popcorns in space. Back to something a little more fun. Here is just a set of sketches for, and Mr. Krabs for some reason, here's a set of sketches for some characters I was working on for a completely absurdist gag manga idea with no real plan. I think I was just going to draw it, and whatever came out is what came out. There's meant to be no consistency, I think. It was just going to be just stuff happening, silly things happening, and random things happening for the sake of random. If I have to say it was inspired by anything, I'd say probably Invader Zim and a manga I think I was reading at the time. It was a manga called Kanpai by the creator of Gravitation. Completely different titles altogether, but the art style I think was very impressive to me, and just the whole idea of it being just random nonsense happening was really fun to me. Excel Saga might have been another influence on this too. So for the characters, we just have Overlord Ichigo, who would be the main character, and he's trying to take over the world. Then we have just two side characters. I don't remember their names, but it looks like this person's name is Chip, and there was a female character protagonist as well. I don't remember her name. I might have drawings of them coming up later on, but for the most part, I think I saved this because I did this with traditional ballpoint pen and wax crayons. So yeah, that was fun. Felt like coloring a big old coloring book. Here's just further example of how I will take advantage of whatever is lying around at the classroom in terms of materials. If someone doesn't want scrap of paper and I think it has potential, I'll go ahead and grab it, even if it has a big old rip in it. Here we just have some random sketching. I think I saved this because I liked the way that the hair was coming out. No real plan for this, just drawing to be drawing, and I really wanted to work on hair forms. I don't think I was using any models. This was all probably from imagination for the most part. But yeah, I really loved how the hair came out, like the body of the hair. It looks full and rich, and even, you know, these two next to each other, this one looks a little more fluffy than the one right next to it. Looks a little heavier on the right hand side, and I wish I kind of continued this. I probably would have filled the whole page with something, but I really do like how these came out, and these were also done with ballpoint pen on just green construction paper. Looking at this for the first time, I didn't remember what this was inspired by, but now that I read the tattoo, I can remember distinctly what I was inspired by. At this point in high school, the Death Note anime had just come out, I think, and my friends and I were obsessing over it. We already read the manga. I think I still own the manga, like in completion. But yeah, I finished it and I loved the art style, loved the story or whatever. And then the anime came out and we were all going nuts and, you know, geeking out over it. And then I remember getting into the opening credits theme song artists, which was Maximum of the Hormone. I don't know if you've heard them. If you heard them, you know what they sound like. They're a very distinctive style of music that they have. So this was inspired by one of their songs, Rock and Roll Chainsaw, as you can see on the character's arm. This was done with dip pen and ink. So brushes and dip pen and ink, just like nibs, and just experimenting with style and more of a loose, chaotic abstraction from just a character with a chainsaw. I don't think it's much else to be said about it. Here's a piece that was inspired by a little sketch that you saw in a previous video. They may have been done around the same time, I don't remember, but this is the character that I spoke of in this video in this still right here. This is a sort of frog prince character, and I just did my own thing with it. Again, I don't know if this was an assignment or I was just drawing just to be drawing, but I had a lot of fun with this, and I really love how everything has held up over time. This was definitely one of those pieces where I'd get the question, is that a boy or is that a girl? If you have to ask, it's a boy. That's just the rules. I remember being particularly proud of the frog, especially the frog sort of abstract design on the back. I probably snuck in some words in there, or maybe kanji or something. I think I probably stuck in the kanji for frog or something. This was done with Crayola colored pencils and I want to say regular ballpoint pen. I don't know why I never discovered actual better pens at this point. I guess I just didn't know that they were a thing. Even just not artistic pens, but just sort of ink ball, rollerball pens, just anything beyond a ballpoint pen. Here's something that I probably will, okay, I'm not gonna say never touch again, but I don't know what I was thinking when I did this. So at this point, I was just drawing characters. I think I was getting back into the idea of making up stories and characters. I definitely was inspired by a dream again this time. So in the dream, I remember these two characters, the person with the red hair and the white striping in their hair, and the little boy character in the very front interacting. And I don't know how far I went with the dream, but I remember them interacting for like the first, I guess, sort of episode of the show. I think I saw it as like an animated series or whatever. I don't remember how the dream really panned out. But yeah, in the beginning I saw them interacting with each other, and I sort of got the basis for the story, and I went from there. And I started sketching them a little bit more and more, and developed the initial cast of characters, and that's as far as it went. This is as far as it got. And I'm a little bummed because I like the characters. I could probably redraw this just for the sake of nostalgia though. Speaking of nostalgia, this is my set of characters from my quote-unquote original story that I keep mentioning. I'll just call it Daki for short. But yeah, it's the main set of characters, so Michiko and Penelope, and their sort of dichotomy, I guess, as characters is that the main character, Kyoto, is torn between both of them. Michiko, on the left, is his former lover and presumed to be dead. After Kyoto goes through a traumatic experience, he ends up stumbling upon Penelope's home and finds Penelope, and has to hide out within her home. Penelope is his current love interest, and their relationship develops as time goes on. But Michiko eventually returns, and, you know, things get complicated after that. This is a piece that is inspired by a story that I wrote. For creative writing, we had to make up a story of a sort of folktale or fairy tale story. The actual story I wrote was a creation myth for a fictional set of Native American type people, or I guess native people, and it was to explain where the earth came from, the sun, the moon, everything. It was actually pretty neat. If I ever do rewrite it, I think I can, you know, add a little bit more touches to it, but I think at the time I love it, and I still love the imagery and the description that I added into the story. I think it'd be a nice little video to redraw some, or at least create some of the characters from this story. This is supposed to be a massive sort of pin-up style image for the main cast in the Daki show, with Kyoto and Penelope and Michiko and all that. So this would be the main cast, and then their friends and their parents, and some side characters, and some animal little mascot characters thrown in. And yeah, but for the most part, yeah, it's at least, you know, every person has at least two people that are their supportive sort of people, and it goes on from there. This was definitely drawn with better ink pen. It's held on a lot better. It's a lot more richer and darker in terms of color and contrast. And then the colors themselves, I believe, were done with water-based Prismacolor markers. I could definitely see myself redrawing this one, if not anything else. This was just a random drawing. I don't believe it's supposed to be anyone. I think it's just a sort of ambiguous androgynous character. It's, I'm guessing, metaphorical. There's a sailboat, there's an anchor, there's, you know, an oceanscape and they're sort of blending into the background. I remember being particularly happy with the subtle stippling that I did on the ropes. I think that was really fun and effective. I like the really harsh texture I got with the anchor, the sort of really weathered look I got on the anchor. This was done traditionally with cardboard paper and black dip pen. This was a piece that I did. I remember I had this fan. I used that as an inspiration for most of the image, and again, it was something where I just sort of started drawing and just went with it. This was mixed media as well. Most of it is colored pencil. The more crisp, I guess, detailed areas are colored pencil, while the other elements are chalk pastel. This has no real story to it. It looks like this is a character from maybe like a sanctuary. Not sure why I didn't finish this. Maybe just time, maybe I lost interest, don't know. I do remember liking all of these little details in there, like the earrings particularly, the, you know, the pendant on her face. Especially liked the tiger lantern. I thought that was a really cool idea. Oh, natural still life this time. So we have my dad's work boot, we have my brother's sort of sandal, my mother's sandal, and I remember wearing these fake Vans. I think they're Airwalks. These fake Vans, I wore them for until they fell apart, I want to say. Really quick, here's a little painting I did. One of the few paintings I've ever done, probably one of 8 that I've ever done over my entire life. I never really cared for this piece, but people really loved it. Here's another quick little study. I believe this was a gecko or a lizard. Don't remember what exact specific classification, but yeah, a little study, a little graphite pencil sketch of a lizard. Alright, continuing on through my angst period. I don't know what was going on. Probably more Death Note and Harajuku stuff going on here. I don't remember being particularly sad or angry or anything or angsty, but I don't know. Maybe I was and this is how I got through it. I don't know. But yeah, this is definitely one of those pieces. I had a few pieces that looked like this that used primarily black, white, and red as their color scheme and sort of darker, like kind of gritty or grungy sort of imagery. I think that it definitely has some redraw potential. I like the composition for sure. In terms of an image, I think it's pretty interesting to look at. Here's another study inspired by Japanese fashion, and this one was done with wax crayons. So here's another core memory piece, I suppose. And this was inspired by Issei Sagawa. If you've never heard of it, it's a contemporary sort of Hannibal-esque story about a man who killed and ate a woman, or at least partially ate her. And I won't tell too much more of the story because it's something you really gotta read. It's nothing super grisly, but for what you can find, it's just a really weird turn of events, especially the ending of the story. Well, not the story, but the end result and what happened to him afterwards. But this was definitely inspired by that, still using the black, white, and red, you know, the really strong color combination. I don't remember at all what the right side is saying. Probably something alluding to the foreman's death. It was just heavily inspired. It was just a very striking story to me. It stuck out to me when I first heard about it, first read about it, and I decided to draw something. And yeah, I went nuts. And this is what I came up with. This was all done with dip pen and red ink and black ink. One funny thing I will say about this piece, not the story, but this piece exactly, is one of my first anime conventions I went to, there was a little kid passing by, and then he saw the piece, and he pointed to it, and he was like, "Mom, can I have it?" And she was obviously distressed, mostly because of, mostly the bottom of the piece. In real life, the piece has a lot of texture to it, that I have going on here that you can't really see in the final print, though there's like a rough sort of, you know, distressed texture that I think works really well around the bottom area of the victim. But yeah, she was obviously not super happy about it, and I remember my mom being like, "Oh, come on," and I was more on, you know, you don't have to get it, you don't have to, please don't feel like you have to, you know, whatever. And I think he ended up getting it anyway, but I just thought that was really funny. It was just really hilarious to see her just like, you know, what about these? What about these little Mario things? What about these little keychains? He was like, "No, Mom, please." And yeah, that was really funny. Here we have a couple pages of this comic thing I was doing. I think I was inspired by sort of Greek clothing and Roman clothing, because her gown is very detailed and like flowy, like almost toga-esque. I feel like that's very important for some reason, but yeah, I remember that dress and her hair on the left-hand side there. I remember drawing those curls and everything. I remember doing that. But from what I can recall, it's a story, or at least a short story, or quick little, I guess, anecdote. Maybe a dream of the own character, you know, going on. This female character is going through a sort of a forest or something, or maybe a field, and they see this male character sitting on a rock looking back at them and smiling. But it turns out that as they look back, they start to decay and fade away. And yeah, that's it. I could definitely see myself expanding on this for like a little short story. Very short story. But yeah, big redraw potential right here. Here's a quick little itty bitty kitty version of Penelope, little chibi style version of Penelope. Here we have a fun little doodle done by Penelope's sister. Here's a sort of revamped version, it looks like, of those characters I drew from the beginning of the video. Just some more detailed pictures of them. It's just drawing just to be drawing, no real structure at all. I think that's probably why I stopped drawing, because I was running out of space for everything. But yeah, sort of an updated version of them. So these panels kind of don't mean anything as far as I can tell. I don't know if there's meant to be anything going on consistently, either from panel to panel or side to side. But I think I just kind of kept drawing and kept drawing just to be drawing, and I drew on a smaller scale so there wasn't so much pressure, and just adding as much detail as I could in these little tiny boxes. Right here, just very quickly, there are a set of characters I had for a manga idea that I was going to write and illustrate myself, a horror-based manga, shonen, horror-based adventure sort of thing going on. So we had Masayaki, the male character lead, and then Bunko, the female character lead. The main premise was that Masayaki was interested in Bunko, and he ended up doing something sort of embarrassing and made her end up hating him. And she takes out her revenge by using sort of supernatural methods, and things get worse and worse as things go on. I have a rough drawing I did of some of the main cast of characters that I did in ink, and when I find it, I can take a photo of it and put it up here so you can see it. But yeah, this was, I like this idea a lot. I like designing the elements, and I usually don't like shonen stories and, you know, weapons and whatever, but if it has swords in it and magic, I'm pretty much okay with it. But anything other than that kind of loses me. Here we have some more Doki doodles, and don't feel bad if you can't make heads or tails of anything. I can barely make heads or tails of anything. I think I get what's going on in most of these panels, but it's hard to tell. I think I was trying to draw omakes. Maybe that's what I was doing. Here's a couple little doodles I have of the Cheshire Cat. I wanted to do sticker sheets of all the characters. I wanted to print these out and bring them to the anime con to sell. Okay, here we have some pages that I did for one of my other sort of slice of life, I guess, stories involving high schoolers, teenagers, whatever. So the story was about a young girl character on the top right here in love with a male character on the left, but she is unaware that he has a boyfriend, and ignorantly thinks that she can convince him to love her instead. So the story was actually meant to be a little deeper than I guess I initially started out. So she's under the belief that he might not be interested in boys as he thinks he is, and she can kind of change him and into liking her. Not that she's better than him, but because she is more in love with him and she thinks that she could be a better fit, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if it's anything as deep as like bigotry or hatred, but but yeah, it was definitely her on the ignorant side, and her friend is trying to convince her all the while, like, you can't just say stuff like that. Like, you can't just do that. That's not how things work. He has his interests. He likes this person. Just because you don't like them or like that's happening doesn't mean that you're right. I remember drawing this out traditionally and then scanning them in and adding the screen tones with this like really a free paint program, photo editing program. And I remember it being really hard because I didn't have a stylus at the time or like a tablet or anything. So all this was done with lasso tool and a lot of stuff like that, and was very careful lassoing and erasing. But I really liked playing with screen tones. I thought that was really cool how I ended up finishing them, and as I printed them and brought them to school, and my friends and I would go over them and talk about them, and it was really cool. It was a really fun experience to see my work, going from drawing to scanning to editing, and scanning and editing the files and learning about everything that way on my own, and then printing them out, and they looked really cool at the time. I still like them. I think they have a really nice sort of rough handmade look to them. Okay, I don't know where this was hiding, but I want to say, I don't know, go on the record to say that I believe this might be my oldest saved drawing ever. Like, ever. I don't know, maybe anything before this has to be like middle school, 5th grade, 4th grade. I don't even know if I really drew back then, but this was like when I officially like got a Katie Coop book from my friend, and I looked through it, and she had like, and my same friend would bring like Shonen Jump and stuff to school, and I was just in love. Like, I didn't know, this is before I knew that manga was a whole thing, and before I knew that like Yu-Gi-Oh was technically an anime. Like, my whole world sort of like my mind was blown, and I picked up the pen and the pencil, and I just kind of got to it, and from then on, this is like the birth, the image that started it all. Of course, we can't have a series without the obligatory beach, pool, summer episode, or whatever. So this was a collection of characters from the docu-series, all in beach attire. I want to say they're on like a giant surfboard or like a pool floaty or something, and just in a little pin-up poster style. So yeah, this has huge redraw potential. This was going to be another idea for a manga that made no sense, that was completely absurdist, that had nothing to do with anything, and was basically irrelevant. But I wanted to do a story in which I thought this was really revolutionary at the time. Maybe it's been done to death at this point, maybe I waited too long, but the story was going to be one of those things where like the main character is chosen, and he's on the very left here, and he is chosen, like, a lot of wild, crazy things are happening all at once, but he has absolutely no interest in it at all. He doesn't want to be a hero, he doesn't want to do anything, he doesn't want to have anything to do with saving the world, defeating Martians, going to space, going underwater. He's not in it. He's not into it at all. And that was going to be the main thing. He was the straight man of his own story. This was a character inspired by a Flash dress-up game. The character on the left, I stole it. I stole the character. You can tell this if you can tell or not. If anyone remembers this Flash game, let me know. But yeah, I completely stole this character. Ripped the character. Totally took it, stole it, ran away with it. And then the right-hand character I actually designed. And this was one of my very first, I don't know if you can tell, one of my very early drawings. I could see myself redrawing these two though. Definitely making Reiko a lot more original. Okay, some more docky stuff, as is per usual. Title is misspelled, as is, expected. But we have the characters here, and I cut them all out painstakingly. I don't know why. I don't know what possessed me to do it. This is another shot of the characters in little chibi form, all sitting in a, field or whatever, posing for the camera. This is a little wonkier than most drawings I've had of them. This is sort of that in-between where I was getting better at drawing them, but this isn't quite exactly what I wanted. Here's a nice little sketch of Yoak that I love so much. This was when I was getting into colored pencils, sort of heavier, trying to draw more realistically. I guess it's fall because there's a big old crinkly leaf. I remember being really happy with how the leaf came out, and this was all done in colored pencil with a couple of ink pen for the writing on the groceries. More little docky doodles. So I think these are omakes, I guess, in this sense, where it's just random nonsense happening with the characters. I remember being really happy with how this particular panel came out. Well, this is weird. I didn't even remember having this, but this was a drawing of the characters from that story about the girl character who's in love with the guy character, but he's clearly not interested in her, and she thinks that she can just change his mind because she wants to be with him. Yet another iteration of Alice in Wonderland, because there's never enough for some reason. I distinctly remember getting this piece of paper and folding it into fourths and then drawing each character and then working on it, so I guess none of them would interfere with each other or something. I don't know. I don't know what the game plan was, but yeah, I didn't draw this all on the same paper, like flat. I kind of hid each panel as I worked on them. Like I said, be a surprise how they came together in the end. Okay, here's another big one. There's a lot of big pieces I worked on. I'm not sure where I got all this free time from. I wish I had it. I wish I had time to just doodle stuff like this and draw every single strand of hair on a person. This is again Kyoto and his former and present love interest and the literal entanglement that he has between them both. I could definitely see myself redrawing this because everything looks so off. It's so random and bad and just not good. Some choices were made, not all good, but yeah, it's worth, I think, revisiting. Okay, and last but not least, we have another big one. I cannot figure out why I drew on this clearly stained paper. Maybe I was going to redraw over it or paint it over or something, I don't know. But yeah, this was a set of images. It's going to be a triptych, believe it or not, of characters from Daki, which is more believable than anything. From Daki, so we have Konbu on the left, Kyoto, and I want to say this is another character whose name was Taigu on the right. And this set of images was inspired heavily by Alphonse Mucha, which I'm hoping I'm saying his name right. I've heard people pronounce it several ways, but I believe it's Alphonse Mucha. But you can see some of his work here. You've probably seen it. If you once you've seen it, you know you've seen it, because it's very stylistically very, very beautiful, and it stands out from a lot of other work. So yeah, it's became a huge influence in my work, and even today, I still love his work. Wow. Okay. This was a lot more than I realized that I saved, and I did skip over quite a bit of them actually. A lot of it's just random nonsense things that I feel like only I would appreciate. But I think I got a pretty good range going in terms of what I did, what I used to draw. A lot of art assignments and school assignments mixed in. It's been fun looking back at that and realizing my influences and how my style has developed, you know, in such a short amount of time, maybe 10 years max between all of these pieces. Hope you enjoyed watching. I will do my best to pick out some pieces that I think have some redraw potential and redraw them probably in a couple videos coming up. I'm sorry I've been gone for so long. I had a back issue recently and I was out of commission for about 2 months and I heal so slowly. I'm so sorry. I was trying my best, but I didn't want to come back in the editing chair or, you know, shooting anything until I was at least 90%. So that's why I was gone for so long. If there's any pieces that you saw that you liked, let me know. And, you know, think I can redraw them if they have any potential to be even better. I'm thinking of doing either traditional or digital or maybe both, depending on the complexity and how much time I have. But I think it'd be fun to redraw some of my old ideas and make them even better. Thanks again for watching my video. I hope to see you again soon. I hope you're doing great wherever you are, and the same for you and yours. Thanks for sticking by me until I got back. I'll do my best to put out another video as soon as I can. Until then, see ya!